Welcome to the Coalesce podcast. My name's Grant.
I'm Meg.
And today we are not going to do any Coalesce stuff.
Yep.
We are actually going to look at Vuetify, which is a view component framework that Coalesce uses kind of natively. So when we were initially building Coalesce, we built it on top of Knockout with Bootstrap tooling over the top. And the reason why you say, well, why did you have to choose so many things? And the answer is to make it easy, honestly. And we were actually just talking about XAML this morning, and I hate dumping on XAML, but I kind of like it a little bit. Like people say that XAML makes easy things hard and hard things possible. And we really tried to go the opposite route to make easy things easy. So you're spending your time developing code that is harder to develop, right? Like the actual logic and layout of the UI and things that require creativity and thinking rather than like tying things together. And so the fundamental reason Coalesce exists is so that you're not writing the API endpoints for lists that are going to populate dropdowns that need to be pageable and searchable and all that kind of stuff. So those are not, at least in our opinions, interesting things to write because once you have a standard for how you write them, you just need to write them the same way every time so that you have all the features. And to me, that's kind of boring. It's just kind of rinse and repeat. And so we're trying to really take and make a spot where you can build things that are fun. And so the reason why we chose that, and the reason why it's there's somewhat of a progressive nature to Coalesce, although out of the box, it comes with all the things. You do get the models, you do get the some of the other pieces that don't necessarily require Vue or Vuetify, but to kind of lean all the way in and to like provide the C dash style components, like the C inputs, things like that, where it's going to automatically link up to the Coalesce backend. Those are, we wanted to be able to provide those. In order to be able to provide those, we had to choose a framework to do that. So we chose Vuetify. We think it's a pretty decent one. There's a lot of other really good ones out there. But this is, we wanted to give just some examples of what you can do with that, because we had somebody say, well, hey, Coalesce doesn't come with very many components. And well, yes, it hardly comes with any components because it just provides the basic ones. But Vuetify comes with a ton of stuff, like over 100 different components, and it has a really great system. There's all kinds of cool stuff going on. So Meg, let's just kind of walk through all the different things. And let's kind of show kind of some of the base kind of functions first, and then we'll kind of go through the different different contains, and there's a whole bunch of different things you can do.
Yeah, so kind of like Grant said, it's a great way to build things really quickly. And I think Vuetify's whole thing is it's a no design skill.
Right. It really makes the pit of success easy to fall into, which is what you really want. And if you follow the examples and what they're doing, you can really make a pretty beautiful UI if you don't just sling HTML and you just think about it a little bit.
Yeah.
You can do something that's really cool.
Yeah. And it's very material designy. So let's get getting started. And this will tell you how to get started with like installing it, which
it's going to come right out of the box. Yeah. So Coalesce comes with this.
Let's jump right into maybe some of the components that you get. So some basic components, things like buttons. Buttons are usually fairly ugly right out of the box.
Right. And so we're in an area called containment. And so that means that these things can contain other bits of HTML. And that's really the idea, is I can put other things inside here. I can have a button and it can be huge or whatever. I mean, there's kind of some ideas.
Slots inside.
And slots and things like that where you can put other things. And so that's what this is all about.
Yeah, and the docs for Vuetify are really some of like the best docs I've encountered. I mean, they have examples here. You can switch the styling and it gives you exactly what you can copy paste this in your code and it'll work.
Right. Now this one is a little bit different than how some of them work. If you want to scroll down, you have to click a button to get to the actual stuff. So in this case,
yeah, you mean like the API of it, this guy.
Oh no, not that part. But there is this API that kind of shows you all the things. But sometimes like right here on this one, you can't actually see the code.
Oh yeah.
Yep. You have to click on the button up there in the corner.
Just because it's so long.
They don't show it. And sometimes they do this thing where they're feeding with data. So they're trying to really show you how you can drive this with your code. And so it doesn't always show you all the detail, but usually all those things can just be expressed in properties or attributes on the HTML.
And if they feed it with data, they usually have the script for you.
There you go. So you can script there.
And you can see this is actually not written in. This is written in Word.
Right.
Actually, this is JavaScript even. So
yeah. So you have to translate. So this is the other. The non-options interface.
Yeah.
Right? So
this is the option.
Oh, this is the option. So we're using composition. Yeah. So we're using composition. This is options. it's fairly straightforward how you do this. I mean, you can kind of see the data is all your incoming prompts, and then the methods are all the methods you can call. But we really like that composition interface significantly better because you don't have to remember any of this kind of boilerplate stuff.
Syntax, yeah.
Yeah.
If you really can't translate it, just ask Copilot and it'll figure it out.
Right. And there's tons of examples. We're really seeing this style take a backseat to the composition interface.
Yeah.
Which the options interface has been around for ages.
Yeah.
So you can put little icons before and behind and all that. And now one of the differences is this is going to come with material design icons out of the box. We are shipping Font Awesome icons out of the box. So you're going to be using the FA instead of the MDIs in front of your icons.
Yeah, so if you were to copy an example here, you just have to be aware this isn't going to work, which it's very easy to swap your font.
It's probably FA plus dash FA solid or something like that.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things, like Meg is a huge fan of one particular UI element.
I don't know what one.
And it's the next one down. Like pretty much everything.
Yeah, I mean, these are nice.
She puts it in a card. So let's talk about cards. So if you use cards, this is a way to just kind of make your if you're writing horrible interfaces and you want to just get a little bit better, like using cards is going to be a great first step. So they have a title, a little subtitle area, a main body, which you can put a lot of stuff in, tables and all that kind of stuff. And then you have a little bar at the bottom. That's the ability to have buttons and things like that. And you can put stuff wherever you want. It just is kind of just some basics there to do that.
They're just a nice way to break your UI up. I mean, even on this page, you see lots of cards. Like this is a card, this is a card.
They use them all over the place.
So they're nice ways to kind of highlight parts of your UI and kind of make it look more modular. So I do like them a lot.
Right. And if we look inside there, let's just look at a couple of look at like that card, for example. So here you have a card and you can kind of see your class and how it's doing the various things here. And then you have talk about this template in this slot business, because if you're not familiar with that, it can be a little bit confusing.
Yeah. So slotting is, I believe it's more like a view thing, but Vuetify kind of hooks into it. And the way it works is basically in your child component, so in this case in the card, the thing that you're kind of trying to use, it has slots defined inside of it. And you can hook into those slots when you're calling that component. For example, it has a slot called title, and that slot might have some specific styling around it that you can then just plop some text into. So you can see we're changing the font weight, but the size is set. And kind of the location of it on the card is set. So there's some preset things that you just get, and then you can add to it, such as like changing font weight to be very heavy instead of more of a thinner font.
Right, and then you have actual things like in this case, there's the V card text, which is like a sub element that fits inside the card. So you kind of see this two ways of doing things where you have there's the V card and then there's the V card text. And I think there's a few other ones in addition to that, and you'll see those in the documentation.
Is like you could technically put a V card text anywhere. It doesn't have to be in a card, but it's properly used in a card.
Inside the card, because all the CSS kind of builds up to have it all styled in a way that looks right with all the right spacing.
There's actually another slot here, which is you have your title slot, but then you have the default slot. And the default slot, if we go to maybe a simpler example, is just this inner area in the card. This is the default slot, this whole area. So
those are the V card acts. In this case, they're using another.
But they put this highlighted text into the default slot. The default slot is the thing between the V card and the end tag for the V card. And then anything in there, you slot in a default slot. And the default slot just
it's all in between.
It's
just in between, right? It's just the body. Now the slots allow you to put things in very specific spots that you wouldn't necessarily be able to control by just putting them in the body.
Yeah.
So great. What are some other favorites that you have?
Yeah, chips are really nice. These are just kind of nice ways to show like a little, I don't know, things in lists or just like status icons and stuff like that.
And there is some overlap. Like if you take a button and you just round the corners, you basically have a chip.
Yeah.
I mean, so but they're not specifically designed to be necessarily clicked on, although they can handle click events.
Yeah, and the thing with the buttons is it's like if you just want this to be a status, like see there's no
click first doesn't change. And
they can take click events like Grant said, but it's just more proper to use a card or a chip if you don't intend it to be a
right. Like if you're trying to show how much how many like
notifications
you have, like a chip would be a great example. Let's talk a little bit about color. We saw a whole bunch of colors up there.
Yes.
There's the way that you work with colors in Vuetify is actually pretty cool.
Let's just Google Vuetify colors and you'll see it's probably my first result because I Google it all the time. It might not be your first result, but it's just
this is so nice. I love the way this works.
Yes. So the way that this works, that Grant loves so much, is that you have all these defined, like top level colors, such as like red, pink, purple, blue, indigo, deep purple. You see they're all kind of here. But then if you wanted variations of those colors, you have all these lightened colors, and they show you how Vuetify will change the text color based on it. So this is all automatically done. If you put cyan darken somewhere, Vuetify will say, oh, I know what that is. I will make the text white. If you put cyan lighten somewhere, it'll make the text black. And you can kind of see what that would look like. So it's very smart about just making the themes work with whatever colors.
It's so nice because you don't have to worry about, and they kind of fix the contrast. You still be a little bit careful with contrast, but in general, the contrast is kind of taken care of for you. But they have all this, it's no more guessing hex codes, right? You can go, okay, I want to kind of have this look. And then the lighten and darken seem to be just very visually pleasing type colors that help you again kind of fall into that fit of success.
Yeah, and I recommend trying not to stray from these colors unless you have a very specific like brand color or something. But these are really, really nice colors for like error messages or for success messages. They're
well, let's talk about like those things, because you're going to get some things right out of the box for success in there. So let's talk about that just a little bit and just how you kind of work some of those primary colors, because that's something you end up using a lot.
A cool example actually would be alerts. So if we look up alerts, let's go here. This guy, maybe not this guy. Yeah, this guy. Okay, so here we have alerts, and you have different kinds of alerts actually. So we can open this up in a playground real quick, just for some better examples. So you see type success, type error, and it will change the icon and the color. Nice. Type warning, that will change it to a yellow with a little exclamation mark icon. And these icons will also work if you use Font Awesome. It will figure that out. And then types info, and that'll make it blue with, and you don't have to keep these colors.
And these colors, you can override them. There's a way to change kind of all your colors out, and Coalesce has a way to do that as well, but it's just the Vuetify way of doing it. And you can specify what all those colors are. And then you have also a primary, a secondary color that you can use as well. And those can be set to the colors. And so that way you can change all the colors at once. You can also use, and a lot of times just that with color equals, and then just a quote and whatever color you want. And that can either be the primary, secondary, warning, error kind of thing, or it could be blue, lighten, 3.
Yeah. And typically it's best to stick to your predefined colors in your theme. So Grant's talking about in your theme for Vuetify, you can change all your colors out. And it's good to maybe only have a primary and a secondary color. Don't go too crazy with colors. And then all your success, info, warning, error colors, those should have specific things. They should be different than your theme, right? Like if your theme is green, then maybe your success color
should
either be a different color green, or just should not be the same color green as your primary color. But then when you're actually in your site trying to do colors, if you want a blue color somewhere, you should maybe consider, do I write like blue here, or do I consider using my info blue color, or is my primary color kind of a blue that I want to use? Because if you have too many colors in your site, it can become very disconnected.
Right.
So it's very important to think about keeping colors to a minimum.
Absolutely. Let's just kind of go through a couple of these. So this bottom sheet, that's just a way to kind of put something at the bottom of your page. If you want to do that, it's really kind of cool. Oftentimes you want that kind of little bottom area. It's a super easy way to do that.
It's like a snack bar. But they do have snack bars that are separate from that. So
the dialogues, super handy. They're a little bit, they're not tricky to use, but sometimes it's a matter of like finding the right place in your code to put them. Do you make them into a component? Do you just put them on the page? And there's basically, in this case, there's a value you can tie to some kind of a just one of your variables that will show it and hide it. And that's all handled internally. So it works great, super easy to do dialogues, value, all kinds of dialogues.
This is bad. Don't do this.
Don't do the horrible dialogues. But dialogues are kind of like a card too. So you can really see a lot of this stuff being reused inside there. So if you look at the code, you can kind of see there.
There's so many things. They put cards in most of the dialogues. So that's usually the background to a dialogue. You have just dividers, which are very basic.
Just a line. It's basically an HR horizontal rule.
Expansion panels. So this is so you can kind of hide content under these.
And you have to be kind of careful how you use these, because there's a couple different ones where you can only open one at a time, and then you kind of have to get them all set up right. And then if you want multiple open at the same time, because you're driving it with code, you actually have an array of the ones that are open, and so it's not it does quite a bit of stuff, and so you just have to be aware that it does quite a few things. And so it's maybe just a little more complicated to use than just being able to open and close things super simply.
Yeah, extension panels can definitely dive into bad UI very quickly.
Right, they can get really weird. So I would be a little bit careful with those. Let's talk about lists.
Yeah.
These are actually super helpful. You're going to use these all over the place.
Yeah, and these are nice because this supports like selection on lists if you
Right.
Yep. So you can kind of keep, this is actually, I mean, this is basically your sidebar, right? Whenever you're navigating pages, that's what you're doing.
And let's talk about, I think it was variant up there. The variant, I think, is really important. It kind of goes all the way through Vuetify, and there's several different variants.
So maybe list isn't, I'd like to go back to more simple.
Yeah, it's almost like a button is probably a little better place to talk about variants.
Variants are all over, but the best place maybe to look is maybe in the button here. So if we open up Vplay again, and we put in variant, there's tonal variant, there's solid, there's text, which you can't really tell the difference between solid because I don't know.
We should color it, yeah.
There we go. So there's solid, there's text, actually, oh, solid's not things. It's flat now. They changed a couple of.
Yeah, they did, they changed it
from 2 to 3. So flat, and then I think the default is kind of like a raised. Yeah, you can see the elevation there.
Oh, and then elevation is also a good thing to talk about. That is one that took me a little bit of time to find, but if you put an elevation on, it adds that kind of drop shadow behind and pulls the stuff off your page, which I think is so fun. Like you can just immediately give your page a kind of a 3D-ish look with just by throwing a few elevations on it.
Yeah, which is funny because I can put flat and then I can put elevation, which totally defeats the purpose.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, you could definitely combine them together.
Yeah, so super easy to do that kind of stuff. And again, make it look, you can go crazy and make it look horrible. Oh, great. Let's keep on going and do a few of these.
Yeah, let's do menus. Menus are cool. So this is just drop down menus, which are very, very useful, very prevalent through lots of things.
Which are actually just lists most of the time, right?
Yeah,
the menu itself is just a list.
Or they can be, they can even be like when your account option in the top right, like this thing up here, you drop this down and it's got like more than just a list on it.
Yeah, you can have a whole bunch of stuff in there. It's really just a container that can contain whatever you want.
Yeah. You can do it on hover. You can do nested menus, which maybe obviously I just messed that UI up, so this isn't a great experience, but you can do it.
Yeah, that's good. And like in those lists, you can also have like titles and subtitles and icons on both sides and checkboxes, so you can have a ton of different things. Inside of that.
So give an example, like maybe a more complex one for a profile. You can do different transitions, and this is true for like dialogues and anything that really pops up. You can change this transition on those.
It's show just a little bit about the transition. The transitions are really cool because they're so easy to use and almost deceptively non-intuitive, right? They're so easy that you think it takes more to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you can see here, all they're doing is like, you want the slide X transition or the slide on the X-axis transition. There it is. You want the slide Y transition.
Right.
Transition equals slide Y transition. You just have to be able to go and find what those transition equals.
Right. And if you wanted to do that for something else in your UI, you basically just, if you go to the transition section, you can just wrap it in a transition and it will transition.
Yeah, let's go there.
It's so neat the way this works.
You can kind of see all these. So there's the X and Y, or sorry, Y and X transition. They have these crazy ones, big transitions, scale transitions, and you can just see all the code for this, right? So these are menus. Wonder if it has using multiple custom transition to this to life.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So you can kind of just see in here what's going on. So here, yeah, so this is what Grant's talking about.
There you go, feature transition. So literally you just wrap whatever you want to be in that transition in this other element and you get the transition. It's super, super cool.
Yeah. But, yeah, very neat stuff.
Okay, let's continue down through the containment. And I can't spend too much time on all these cool things.
Yeah, so sheets are very similar to cards.
It's just basically without all the other stuff. Card is kind of like a sheet without with just extra things on it. The overlays, if you want to put a thing over the whole screen, so you want to kind of lock somebody out of the UI for a second, that's a good way to show that something else is happening or to bring the focus to a certain piece.
Yeah. Or if you needed to if you wanted to do a very customized thing on your page with an overlay, that's kind of what that's doing. Sheets, toolbars are pretty cool. This is just kind of stuff you can put at the top of your page. They're very typical.
Yeah, basically you put some stuff on the left, put some stuff on the right. There's the V spacer that is maybe a little bit different than what you'd see in regular kind of CSS stuff that allows you to push things apart.
Yeah, so let's see. Good example of the V spacer. It might not have any super great examples because it's kind of used just throughout all their examples, but yeah, it's just a spacing component. And I mean, maybe this was a good spot to see it. So this might not be using a spacing component because toolbars typically have slots.
Yeah, right. To do the left and the right.
Oh, it is.
There you go,
so
perfect.
This space here is represented by the spacer and it just pushes things to the far.
Yeah, it's almost like a float left, float right, and the spacer is what's in the middle taking up the space.
It's easy to use. These are actually self-enclosing, I believe, so you don't need to do that, but
let's talk. Keep going. No, keep going. No, this is good.
I found one too fast.
No, you're doing great. This is awesome.
Tooltips are cool. Tooltips are useful, and this is a great one. They just look nice. Otherwise, if you use like a basic HTML tooltip, they can look kind of ugly. And then they're very similar to everything. And tooltips are cool in the sense as well that they don't need to be just text. You can actually put more information in here.
And right here, we do see a button, and there's this icon style button that becomes round. So that is something to kind of look out for. And the buttons do have sizes too, which is really cool. They have kind of an extra small all the way up to an extra large. So you can see all those things. So button, and you see the little icon in there, and then you can just put the icon right in the middle and it becomes this little round thing as opposed to just a regular size button.
And you can even just set the icon right here if you did icon equals.
And rather than having to do that.
But if you didn't want to put color, just do icon equals and V card.
That's cool. And Meg, we see all these V row and V call all over the place. We should probably talk about the grid system and this really comes from the early days of Bootstrap, when Bootstrap introduced a grid system, and it's essentially the same.
Yep. So the grid system these are breakpoints for it. So you've got extra small, small, medium, large, extra large.
And we talk about breakpoints, that's as your screen changes sizes, this is how it's going to behave. So you want to be able to control, like in one case, let's say you had something that you wanted to be like 3 columns across, and then when you get it a little smaller, you want it to be 2 columns, and then when it's really small, you want it to be 1 column across. And especially when you're laying out cards and things like that, this is a super easy way to make sure that your device or that your application is responsive to screens of different sizes.
And this is what I mean when they have great documentation. I mean, they took the time to make this little grid. They have all the little different device icons, so
that's cool.
Phone, this is an extra large computer. They tell you the type, and then they tell you all the ranges for the breakpoints. I mean, this is just so helpful, and I see lots of docs that just don't take the time to do this. And I really appreciate that they do this. And then they give you lots of examples on what their grids kind of look like. So they have all their different types of things here.
So you can align them either top, middle, center, top, middle, bottom. And then you can do left and right. Like here, you can see those different alignments.
And then they kind of show you all of them together. And then just laying out this grid here. I mean, if you wanted a grid that looked like this, just come in here, copy the code, and then customize all the interior bits, right? So
now, in this case, we're not actually seeing the different breakpoints for the different screen sizes. In this case, it's just going to kind of do a default thing. But you can, like here, you see some offsets. That's where you want to leave blank spots. Now down here, you start to see where you're actually doing the breakpoints there. So you'll say small 3, whatever that was. So if the screen is small size, it's going to be 5. If it's above, medium and above, you're going to get a 6.
Yeah.
So in this case, and a lot of times you can just literally take and change the size of your screen, which will oftentimes kick it into development mode. And then you can just push your screen around and see how it changes and get an idea for what those look like.
You can kind of see there how when I go this size, these 2 columns take up, they both equally fill up that top column. And if I go here, this guy takes up a little bit less than half. Like there's this space.
Which is just kind of weird UI. But I gotta say it's kind of odd UI, but
this is a weird example.
If that's what you need to do, like you're literally changing not just how wide it is, but whether you're putting an offset space in the middle. So it's super powerful. There's actually a whole bunch of other stuff that's going on here.
Is a better example. I feel like it makes more visual sense. Like you can see here, we're on a very wide screen. I mean, it's still a weird UI, but you can see it better.
Yeah, you can really see it.
When I pop to here, it kind of keeps things all.
So there are several flex things that also come with this. There's more than just this for the grid system. So feel free to dig into those kinds of things too.
Lots of stuff here. This is super customizable too. So I think that this is probably one of the most important things to start learning when you start doing this.
And essentially you're going to create a V row, and then your things are going to go inside V calls, but then have these classes. So it'd be class equals V dash call dash 3 if you want that. Now, we should probably also talk about just how do you add spacing when you want to adjust. Like, let's say you have two buttons. By default, if you have two buttons, the buttons just get mashed together.
Yeah.
But you rarely ever want that.
What would I think it's not it's like padding and margin.
Padding and margin.
What's the keyword that you would search for?
Oh man.
Maybe it's just spacing. Oh, it's just
spacing. There it is. Good job.
Nice and easy. Okay, so this is what Grant.
So if you don't know the box model for CSS, it is really important to know that. So just go and watch a little video, learn the box model, but essentially have content, padding, border, margin.
Yep.
On the outside.
I see that here.
And you'll see it. There's a whole bunch of things. If you look at your little layout pieces, you can get the little. You can show that here. You click on an element. Yeah, I don't think your screen's very big enough to show those things, but
anyways, but you can see it here if I just hover.
So. Yeah, you can see what that looks like.
All right. So then anyways, this is all the padding. So again, they show you kind of all the nice padding. It should be all the same breakpoints as with the rows, but just so you know. And then let's start from, I don't know why it kind of popped me down at the bottom there, but anyways, let's start at the top.
Oh, this is a great little tool that allows you to change it.
Yeah, this is, well, yeah, here's the box model. Okay, we should just scroll up. The docs here are amazing. So the way that this works is there's padding all, padding y-axis, padding x-axis.
So left and right, up and down, left and right.
I don't know what E is, but it will probably tell me. E to margin right. Yeah, so it's this guy down here. Okay, and then S is something else. Yeah, so E and S. I don't really use those very often. But then you have right, left, bottom, top.
Right.
And then your sizing.
So how much you're putting in there, and that's not the number of pixels. Yeah. It's like 3 or 4 times the number of pixels because it just gives you a little bit of space. I think it tells you what right it is. Here. Yeah, 4 pixels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then you can go negative too. So you can see if you just put an N in front of it, you can go, and it goes up to 16, which is up to 64. And then auto is just an auto spacing. So if we came in here and we did a 0, you can see it gets rid of.
It's get rid of entirely all padding. So that's the space between your border, so the edge of your element, and the content that's in the middle.
Yep. If we got rid of all the margin, you can see there's no margin now. So if we add back in that margin for 10, if you put a padding of 1, that's what that's going to look like. It's pretty cool how that's doing it. Yeah. You can see if you just did bottom, there's your margin on the bottom, margin on the left.
And you can set these however you want to. I mean, you can have multiple classes.
Yeah.
And again, these are set as a class. So you'll say class equals, and then px-4 will give you padding on either side of 16 pixels in this case.
Yep, just kind of like this here, PA-6. So this is important to know. It's probably good to just kind of read through to understand all the sizing.
Super cool. Okay, let's jump into a few more of these things. So these are really the forms, and you can use any of these form inputs. And when you do combo boxes and stuff like that, some of those things you're actually wanting to put lists and things in, you're going to want to use the Coalesce versions because they're going to automatically tie to the back end to be able to do type ahead and all those fun things and process them on the server side. You can load all this stuff. Like, let's say you want to load a list and then you want to put it into a box to be the dropdown. You can totally do that. That's completely fine. You're just going to end up pulling the whole contents of the list back and just doing it on the client side. Yeah. So if you have 10 things in your list, it's probably fine. If you have 10,000 things in your list, it's probably a bad idea because it's going to slow your page down and have a big load right up front, unless you're maybe needing to handle that 1,000 times in your page, then maybe it's not worth going through all those columns.
Yeah, and some of these might look familiar because they are Coalesce kind of just wrapped some of the basic components of these. And it's cool too. You can customize all your drop downs.
Yeah, look how nice those look. You have like the icon, the kind of avatar image on the left. You have this is just a list. And then you have the kind of a title and then your subtitle.
And if you want to know how to customize it, you just come in here.
Go in there too.
And they have a lot of code in here, right? But you look for their autocomplete. Look, you can see they've got their templates, they got their template item, and here they're just kind of customizing things.
Templates are pretty cool. I mean, we should talk just a second about those. And those allow you to basically, if you ever want to do something and you don't want any UI element, you can just put it in a template. So if you, let's say you want to do a 4, but you need some different things inside of it, you can just put your 4 inside of a template, or a v-if. You put that in a template, and then everything inside of that is all contained within that. It's just like essentially this placeholder that doesn't do anything other than allow you to put kind of the view code or Vuetify stuff inside. So
yeah, it's when you don't need a whole component to hold that thing too. It's just kind of relevant to that one.
Right, but all kinds of things, select, sliders, switches. I mean, tons and tons of stuff here. Yeah. I don't know that we need to go down through all of it. You kind of get the idea.
Yeah, and you guys can go through this. You can do, I mean, it does files. very, like, if you just pop this in your code, this is going to work for you. It's great.
Yeah.
So lots and lots of stuff. Radio buttons, range sliders.
Remember the difference from radio buttons. When you use a radio button, only one thing selected. When you use checkboxes, multiple things can be selected. So that is like, there's a few cardinal rules. That's one of them. Like, don't mess with that.
And it makes it easy here. Like I don't think it actually will let you.
Yeah, right. Totally. It allows you to, again, pit of success. Yeah. And then with checkboxes, like know whether you should use a checkbox or one of those little slider things.
Yeah,
so that it's obvious. And these are kind of what are the switches? Yeah, little switches. Some of these are tricky, like to know what color, like what are you actually checking is hard, where checkboxes are really clear. These have a real place, though. I mean, especially in mobile UIs where you want to be able to turn something on and off. Also, watch out for colorblind stuff. That's important. Mostly only affects dudes, but I think it's a big deal so that you don't just represent something as color. Totally use color as an added thing, but don't have it be the only thing. Like if you click a button and there's no indicator other than whether it's blue or green or red or whatever, not a good UI. You want to have some other indicator as well as that.
Yeah, and I will say, I think like this, that's where switches can get a little bit confusing for users. But overall, I think Vuetify does a good job.
Good job, right? As good as it can.
So text fields, these are very basic. That's what we use for our
right. But this does kind of show you all different aspects of a text field. Like you have the label in the middle that then moves to the top line. You have the stuff on the bottom that allows for validation. Yep. Those things are, and different kinds of buttons on each side. It's just so flexible. The kinds of stuff you can do it's awesome. You can just kind of create whatever kind of UI you want, but you get this really nice experience right out of the box.
Yep, you got text areas, and those are things you can expand and contrast, and they're usually a bit bigger. You can do multiple lines, right? So that's the idea of text areas. And then you have all the data. You've got data tables. These are a little bit complicated, but they're good to know. Can I give an example?
What's the difference between a data table and a table?
So data tables, you give it something and it does a lot of the sorting. Like all that, that's all that kind of is like baked in for you to hook into.
Right.
Whereas with a table,
it's just
a table. It's just the formatting, really.
Right. And it just allows you to do that. And the tables are nice because you can do things like alternating like stripe the table, which I find is really helpful in certain types of cases. And you're really finding a lot more minimalistic tables. Like here, you don't have all of the vertical kind of bars in between everything. Mm-hmm. You're just using justification to kind of make visually the fact that this data is separate from the other data.
Yeah. And I mean, data tables are cool, but this is all with Coalesce. I feel like they aren't used that often. It's not even. Oh, I only have 10 items. So
yeah, so it's not going to be any more.
So with Coalesce, I don't know. I haven't really used this very often, but you can.
So one of the things that you get like this, that spark lines, these are actually kind of cool. I'm surprised this is here because usually you have to bring in a graphing library to do this kind of stuff. And so it does, again, this is not a graphing library, but it does have a little bit of stuff.
Yeah, it's very basic. I mean, there's no axis names.
Right.
This is not about all you can do. Yeah, it's just show a line. But it's cool. I mean, if you need something really good,
just a little thing where you can click on it and then blow something up and use some other piece.
Oh,
well, there's a little bit. You can do it.
Yeah, it's very limited though, from what I remember. I feel like I've started using it and I gotta go get like three.
Right. But honestly, like here's a little UI, and it's a decent looking UI. I don't know if this is amazing, but like here's a little UI and you find it and you can see exactly how they built it, which is cool. So honestly, just going through the Vuetify docs and looking in various other places for ideas is a super cool way to do that. So let's talk about collections just a little bit.
Yeah, where do you see that? Sorry.
Well, no, you were just there.
Like toggles?
Yeah, well, there was the thing where you could like put together multiple buttons in a button group.
Oh yeah, this guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Button groups. That's what this is. So these are just button groups, and the way that these work is, they're groups of buttons, and they sit in this thing called a V button toggle, and that has a V model on it. And the nice thing about this is you can only pick one of them, and it just
does it for you. Like you then just bind to one thing, and you decide what your values are for the different buttons you selected. And it saves you all this code, because otherwise, if you had like just 4 buttons, you would have to decide how they look, and
You'd have to make sure that if you click one button, you toggle all the other buttons
off, and it just does it for you. And it also does the nice rounding on the corners
Yeah.
of the whole thing, as opposed to just the rounding of, it doesn't look weird where each button's rounded.
Yeah, it looks very nice together. And then you can have like more pill-shaped ones. So that's really cool. And then looks like their B list is broken.
Yeah, so you have carousels, which are nice. If you want to be able to do images, those come right out of the box. You can do those.
Yeah. Chip
Yeah, it does look like
this
they
is
are.
similar to button groups. So these are all just grouping things. Slide groups, this is just to slide through things, and this is I believe you can drag this too on like a mobile device.
I think you're right.
So if I get my mobile device out here, well, maybe I won't be able to. It usually gives me, oh yeah, there we go. See,
yeah, there you go. That's more of your finger.
Yeah.
The idea.
And then you've got windows and steppers. Steppers are kind of cool, so you can, just
go through. So it's basically like tabs almost.
Up for something.
Yeah, they provide so many of the things that you don't have to build by hand. It's super cool.
We did alerts already. Hold on. Let's do something else. Badges are cool. This is actually more of
this is more for that little thing. This is probably what you should use for the number of lights or whatever under the messages.
Chips. But chips can be like more statuses. But you can see those are definitely good.
It's just something to put a number inside.
And what's cool actually about this is, if you see here, this is an icon with the badge around it, and like you can change this to be any icon, and then you wrap it in the badge, and that badge there shows up. And what's nice about that is it automatically does that little offset for you on whatever you want. So that's really cool.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to think about, like, I would never think about having an icon wrapped in a badge. It would be more like an icon with a badge, but sometimes you just, like, icons don't really have content, so they created the badge to be the outside container.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird the way it wraps, but yeah, exactly why. There's all the progress things here. Hovering, so there's the hover.
Just allows you to
wrap things in a V hover, and then you can bind to that hover property, and then whenever this becomes true, you can change your color, right? And then there's progress. So that's
we should talk about this. This is pretty important. And there's some of this built into Coalesce. You can just use it, but
it builds off of this, right? So it's good for what this is doing.
This is how it implements it.
This is a circular progress. So this is indeterminate, and then you can actually have ones that go and update over time. You just have to write that. That's kind of what this is doing. There's linear progress bars. That's this guy.
Yeah.
And you can change everything about it and get indeterminate. So if you're just loading a task that you don't want to keep track of it, you just want to say this is loading, you just have it go indeterminate. They can go backwards.
And honestly, most things in the UI somewhat end up being indeterminate unless you've done a bunch of code to actually hand back how far along the process is.
Yeah, it's usually I don't find it super worthwhile to show progress unless it's a really long running.
Or show specific progress.
Yeah,
right? like 10%, 30%, 50%.
That's helpful, but most of the stuff in the UI is really quick. So you just want to tell the user that way it doesn't hang for a second. You just want to say, oh, we have a little loading bar, and then it goes away. You have ratings, so it's just funny. I mean, and you can do half increments.
Oh, nice.
You can do full increments. If you hover, see it does that animation for you. You can turn
that cool stuff.
You can make it read on. You can make it longer. You can make it bigger. You can change the value. I mean, it's just
really.
It's you would usually
so much
have to write this. It's just really cool that it's here. Here are the snack bars I was kind of talking about. So that's just the little thing down there. Skeleton loaders. This is just showing
again, kind of gives you that nice little effect that there's going to be something here. It's just not quite ready yet, and it's super easy just to drop it in.
Yeah.
And you can have a nice UI, and then it just goes away once the page is loaded.
Yeah, I mean, imagine you're loading a whole bunch of images, like big image grid. You had a gallery, and you're loading those images, all like on different threads, right? All coming in at different times. So as one image pops in, all the other ones are showing this kind of loading symbol. Of
and what it does is it allows your page to have some structure. And so you're not kind of building the page.
It doesn't jump around.
It doesn't jump around. But you don't have all these as things pop in. You leave these, and you can do it really nicely. You can kind of show what your page is going to look like. It's really, really cool stuff there.
Timelines. This is just a nice visual thing to just kind of show stuff over time.
And either horizontal or vertical with coloring.
Yep, with color and with.
You can use cards there in this case.
Different sizes, very customizable stuff. You got all the images, you have avatars, you've got color pickers. I mean, this is built in for you. This is all you have to do, and then bind it to a V model if you want that value.
If it was ever going to be your
date pickers.
Yeah, let's talk about date pickers for a second. Like, so this is a decent date picker. Where's the time picker?
So there's not a time picker right now because they haven't moved it from Vue 2. So I think the two things we're still, or there's a couple things we're waiting on, but a couple of things are the time picker and the calendar. So
but the time picture. So Andrew, who we will have on the podcast at some point, who does a lot of this, he did write a time picker. So there actually is one in Coalesce that is a date time picker because we just got sick of waiting. So we had to have one. So if you use one in Coalesce, it will be somewhat custom. We'll probably, unless theirs is horrible, once they put one out, we'll probably use it. But we got sick of waiting. And so, and honestly, time pickers are really hard. And there isn't like a standard, like here's a calendar. Okay, everybody uses that. But is it a clock or is it a slider for the hour and then the AM and PM and what kind of time do you use? All of those things.
This is a pretty good calendar. I saw a calendar in Telerik specifically where it was 3 columns. One column was the month, one column was the day, and one column was the year, and you had to slide up and down. And it was like, oh my gosh, like that's not how I think about I think about days in this calendar view. So it's just
and there are advantages because you can't get to 1973 very quickly from this particular one. No, you can't click on stuff, right?
So I don't know. I like this. I like this more, but I had a big problem.
But there are different UIs. We'll cut them a little slack.
There are different UIs, but some UIs, in my opinion, are better.
And these can be put inside the dialogues, or they can just be popped right on your screen. They can pop up. You can do a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
In a drop down kind of thing.
And if you want to do that, you just have to go to the menu and then make your V menu and then put this inside the V menu.
Right.
So no time picker and then no calendar either. Although somebody else, Victor, wrote a calendar for Vue 3, so that's what we've been using as well because they haven't moved their calendar over. But the calendar is really cool if we just want to look at it really quick, and maybe if people start.
Maybe somebody will go up and do this. So
Vuetify 2. Vuetify 2. Calendar.
But you can't use this one, right?
You can't use. Well, if you go back to Vue 2, you can use it.
But nobody wants to do that.
But isn't that cool?
It's a nice calendar.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
So you have to pull in a different one, or if you want to look out on GitHub for Victor's calendar, we could link it in the description.
Yeah. So
if you're looking for a calendar component.
Yeah, it is cool. And hopefully they will move it one day.
So I think we're almost done. Let's see, date pickers, color pickers.
Yeah. I think one thing worth mentioning is like. I think I clicked on a page really quickly and then left it. If we just, I'm going to go back up to a simple one here as an example. But all of these have something called an API. If you hit this API, you can see all the things.
This is every attribute that you can put onto a button.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And
these aren't all displayed in this documentation because there's so many.
And some of them are just, they kind of cover it a couple times at the beginning. And then like, for example, variant or size or those kinds of things. You don't always see those. Size is usually covered.
And what's nice is they tell you all the values that can go into there. So if you're like, oh, what are the variant options? Or what is density options?
So density, like how tight is the spacing around everything?
Yep. So you can make a button very like the default. You can make it comfortable, which is a little bit more padded, and then compact, which is like they take away a lot of the padding.
Yeah, right. And
just not so much that it's ugly, but enough that it's fits very.
And there are screens where you just need to put a lot of stuff on them in order for your user to be the most efficient that they can be.
Yeah, like an admin screen or something.
So it's important these come up all over the place, and so it was worth some time to go in and just click through these because all those buttons you just click on them and it's going to give you more information about what that particular thing does, and they're oftentimes applicable across many different controls that you're using inside of Vuetify.
And we'll show you all the slots, and we'll show you all the SAS variables too, which is really nice. So if you need to override something, you just come in here and you kind of look up what you're trying to override. It'll tell you what it does. So documentation is really good.
So good.
Really good. Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, there's lots of stuff here that we just very quickly glossed over, but it gives you a good place to go look around. And then if you want to play with it, just hit the playground up here or do what I was doing where you just find something you like and hit this playground and it brings that code in for you. And then you can just start doing stuff, right? You can just try that out. That's what compact looks like. So very easy to start learning.
Cool. Yeah, and there's lots of if you want to look for videos out there, check out the videos of Vuetify, kind of getting started. But really, it's pretty easy just to jump into copy and paste some code from here down there, modify it to your code, in your code, whatever you need to do, bind it up. Remember that colon. That's gonna whenever you have an attribute, you just want to specify the attribute, like you specify color, it'd be color equals green. But if you want to do color equals button color, and then you have that's a variable down below that you could have be the green or primary or secondary or whatever it
And
is.
that's where Vue kind of comes in to pair with Vuetify, is that it makes all those bindings for you and makes it easy.
Absolutely. Okay. Anything else? Any other features or things that we need to talk about? I feel like we covered a lot of stuff.
I mean, if you guys have any specific components you want to see examples on, maybe ask a question, but
go to the comments
and see what you can do.
Yep. Happy to help out. Well, until next time, keep on building awesome Coalesce apps.